Luke Herson was just revealed to be the second 5-star character coming within Wuthering Waves' version 3.1 update. And with drip marketing comes of course my speculation. So just like before, I'm going to speculate what I believe Luke's kit is going to be in today's video. Starting with, obviously, yet again, his weapon type and his element. Now first, I want to get his weapon type out of the way, because this is the one I'm the most confident on. Because, well, here's the thing. In his drip marketing, he, several times, mentions a blade and creating blades out of gold. His quote from his drip marketing is quite literally, "Let this gold become your most reliable blade." And when they explain how his forte works, they say that the energy flowing inside Luke Herson's body undergoes a phase transition, accompanied by a burning sensation and a temporary rise in body temperature. In the blink of an eye, the blood in his palm solidifies into a blade that Luke Herson wields with surgical precision to cut down his enemies. Now, oh boy, oh golly oh gee, I wonder what types of blade weapons we have in the game. We have two of them, being swords and broadblades, and I wonder which one would be easier to use with surgical precision. I wonder, could he perhaps be a sword character? I know, crazy idea, right? The character who says they use a blade would be a sword character. I will say that this is Kuro Games, and they simply not making sense. After all, Mornia somehow is a broadblade user and not a rectifier character. So Kuro could be entirely trolling us here. Zani uses a massive greatsword and somehow she's still a gauntlets character. So Kuro Games can go anyway with this. I don't trust them anymore. But with them mentioning a blade 3 times, I'm pretty confident in saying he's a sword character. And then he's somehow going to be revealed to be something stupid like a pistol character. But anyway, with that out of the way, next I'm gonna discuss what I believe his attribute is going to be. And my guess here is going to be Spectro. Now, after making my Ameth video yesterday, I realized that Spectro was also a very viable option, because not only was Starlight mentioned in her drip marketing and Spectro is meant to be the light element, but there's also the Rite of Gilded Revelation set that came out. However, now that Luke is confirmed for 3.1, I think he's going to be the Spectro character, and thus he's going to be the one using the Rite of Gilded Revelation set. Because if I had to choose one of them to be the user of Rites of Gilded Revelation, it wouldn't be Ameth. I think Ameth has more than enough hype behind her to make her the quintessential off-tune DPS. Gacha games want their most hyped character to embody the new mechanic, that way there's more hype surrounding their release. So if one of them was going to be the off-tune DPS, it would have to be Ameth, which means Ameth would use Lene, and thus Ameth would have to do liberation damage. However, this new set doesn't buff liberation damage, rather it buffs basic attack damage, which means that Luke would most likely not be a Lene user, and that would most likely eliminate him from being the premium off-tune DPS. But I'm getting a bit off topic here. So for more reasons as to why he's Spectro, not only is the Rite of Gilded Revelation set most likely his design is also more closely related to Spectro than Ameth's is, with him having the blonde hair, as well as apparently having golden blood. Now, golden blood is obviously not something that we have in real life, like for example stars or color. So I can't say how this would scientifically tie into Spectro as an element. But someone is gonna have to run Rites of Gilded Revelation, and I think that character is gonna have to be Luke. So my prediction for him is that he's going to be a Spectro sword character. So with that out of the way, it's time to dive into what I believe his gameplay is going to be like. And this is where I start to get a little bit conflicted. You see, I don't think Luke is the type of character to be a main DPS. But if we're gonna base his gameplay off of the Rite of Gilded Revelation set, I feel like he kind of needs to be. Because here's the thing, if we make him a sub DPS and he uses the Rite of Gilded Revelation set, well, why not just use Pact of Neon Light Leap? It also buffs Spectro damage, but also gives a buff to the next character. This is almost always better than simply building the character for damage. Even when it comes to Yuno Augusta, it's still not that far off to use Moonlit Clouds on Yuno to buff your Augusta, despite Yuno's massive damage profile. so Luke would need to do an insane amount of damage if he's going to be a sub DPS and use the Rite of Gilded Revelation set. And obviously, because, you know, Rite of Gilded Revelation is damage based, he can't be a pure healer either, which kind of forces him to be a main DPS. But I already believe Amenth is going to be a DPS, and the only other time they released 2 dedicated main DPSs was 1.1 with Jinxi and Changli. And even then, Changli had a supportive Atra skill, which means you could use her as a sub DPS. So, not a single role he could occupy really makes sense. He's also quite literally a doctor. I think a doctor should have healing in their kit if you want it to be relevant to his personality. I mean, they could draw upon the dark past that they mentioned in his drip marketing, but his current identity is of a doctor. When it comes to Linnea's dark past, we didn't make her kit revolve around that either. So overall, this dude's role is really confusing. I'm gonna go with the assumption that he's a main DPS because that's just the only real way to make the Rite of Gilded Revelation set worth it, but I'm not happy about it. So let's talk about the details, why don't we? Reading the set's 5-piece effect, dealing basic attack damage will increase spectral damage by 10% for up to 3 times. And when you have 3 stacks, Resonance Liberation will also get 40% basic attack damage bonus. It doesn't state a timer for this effect, but that's because, in reality, the way it works is it will only give that basic attack damage bonus to the Liberation cast itself, which means that Luke's Liberation will have to count as basic attack damage. And I also believe that most of his damage has to come from casting his Liberation. Now there is a couple of ways to work around this. The biggest one of all is to work the same way Carlotta does. During Carlotta's Liberation, each one of her death knells counts as casting a Liberation, despite not needing to use the Liberation input to do so. And I assume Luke's ultimate is going to work in a very similar way. I imagine that he will use his intro skill, build up his forte, use his forte skill, and then use his liberation, which will be a Carlotta or Augusta-esque liberation, where it allows him to attack afterwards with special liberation attacks. And these attacks will count as casting your liberation, and thus benefit from the set's bonus. However, here is something that I want to dive into that doesn't have to do with how he's going to play, but rather with his potential within the meta. So here's the thing. We already know that he is going to be a basic attack damage dealer. This instantly gives him an incredibly easy character to exploit that is also entirely free. And that of course is Thundah. She's quite literally given for free by the 5-day login event for new players. And I'm pretty sure that literally every single person who has been playing this game since version 1 already has an S6 Thundah at this point. And because Thundah has such a quick rotation, that is automatically going to be a very good option for main DPS Luke, because, well, buffing basic attack damage bonus is kind of the primary thing that Thundah does. Additionally, when it comes to healers, the negative status teams have proven that Spectral Rover can be a pretty good healer. And obviously, if you don't want to use Spectral Rover, you still have Verena, and most players have Shorekeeper at this point, so trying to get a good healer for the team is no issue. But I mainly want to focus on Spectral Rover and Verena here. And then when it comes to weapons, being a sword character obviously gives you access to Emerald of Genesis, which is one of the most universal weapons in the entire game. Where am I going with this? Well, I believe Luke might be the strongest free-to-play DPS that you can pick up in all of Lahai Roi. Having a strong 4-star teammate, having a good standard banner weapon you're able to abuse, and then also having good 3rd slot teammates that are low cost, yeah, this character absolutely has a ton of potential to be a very strong F2P pick. Now obviously we don't know how this is going to work out in practice, because we don't even know what he does. Hell, we don't even know if he's going to be a Spectral basic attack DPS that uses a sword. We don't know any of these things, but based on the information that's being presented to us, I think there's a very good chance that Luke might end up becoming one of the most free-to-play friendly characters in the entire game. But that's just my opinion on him. Let me know what you think of Luke down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Additionally, if you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. And if you just want to see more of me, you can check out my second channel, which is also linked in the description. I don't post often, but when I do, it's kind of just what I'm passionate about. But that'll be all from me. Peace.